Ho, 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 Merry Weirdmas. Welcome to Wyrd Wessex. My name's Andy.
And my name's Craig.
What are we talking about today, Craig?
Well, today, Andy, as it's Christmas, we have a special guest. So, welcome to the show, prize-winning storyteller, Jason Buck.
Hello, merry weird Christmas to you both. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome.
Here we go. I've shown solidarity as well. I've got your Stay Weird T-shirt on as well. So those people at home are listening. You can hear the fabulousness of the T-shirt.
Yes.
I was going to say, it's a handsome T-shirt you've got on there.
Yeah. So, welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you.
I'm not going to go into too much detail about what you do because I figure if people want that, they can go. If they go to my Will I Make It podcast, we had a good long chat on there last year, so they'll find your interview on there. So we're going to get straight into the weird. So I wondered whether you're a believer in anything paranormal.
Do you know? I think I'm a searcher for proof. I've always been interested in the paranormal and in weird and in unexplained stuff. Ever since I was young, but also it kind of wrestles with my mind as well, and I want proof. There are things out there and there's stuff, and it always fascinates me, and I'm just waiting for the proof to turn up, and then I know it's all definitely true. But until then, I'm quite happy to enjoy its existence in a kind of in a sort of mid state between reality, truth, fiction, dream, and story.
Have we found our Mulder?
He wants to believe.
He wants to believe, yeah.
Because the truth, I understand, is out there somewhere.
I have been assured of this, possibly in a field in Wiltshire.
That kind of answers the other question I had for you, was whether you'd ever experienced anything paranormal.
Well, I think I have, especially when I was younger. I had either an awful lot of nightmares and dreams or an awful lot of strange experiences. And where I grew up, my house looked out over a kind of a relatively busy road, but into a kind of quite a wild park, quite a bit, one of the big deer parks in down in southwest London. And I am sure that one night there was a knocking at my door. And as a child, I stood up and I opened the door, and there's what I would now, as an adult, would describe as an earth elemental standing out there. A short, squat, dwarfish thing with sort of no neck and a great head that ran down to its shoulders that looked as if it was made of earth and mud and covered in leaves. And it just sort of stood there going, as I was talking to it, and I was showing it all my dinosaur models that I'd made that were up on top of my wardrobe. And then eventually, at some point, I said I should probably go to bed now, and said goodbye to it, and went back to bed. But that was a very real experience.
I mean, how old did you say you were?
I don't know. I probably must have been about
27.
yeah. It's in my early 40s.
And that is the day that Jason met Craig.
A short, stocky, gnomish individual. No, it's very strange, very real. And of course, there's all the odd things that just happen through life as well, the coincidences and the odd things and noises and the other things. But there's still, I need to be able to track that down so that I will truly believe.
I've got to ask. I know you're a D&D enjoyer.
I am.
Have you included that in a campaign at all? I've got to ask. Have you used that in a story, in a campaign at all?
The earth element thing, I haven't. I haven't. But he did inspire something in a story that I wrote. So in the storytelling part of me, there's a story in which there is an ice, a frozen water elemental. It becomes an ice giant, an ice elemental, whose name is Isayan, which in Finnish means grandfather ice. And in that, he speaks to a number of elementals, kind of wanting to get rid of this child who is going to die in the snow, and he doesn't know what to do with it. And so he speaks to the earth elementals, one of them, who says, "No, she will come to my realm one day, but not yet."
Ooh.
So, as it's Christmas,
yes,
bring the conversation round. Yes, if anyone hadn't noticed, you jingle quite a lot. Are you a Christmas person? Probably
yes.
A silly question.
Does this answer your question? Yeah. No, yeah, I love Christmas.
You actually wear that all year round, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just this is just I'm just these are my pajamas. Probably for those people listening, probably don't realise that I've got covered in fairy lights and bells and bits of Yuletide foliage and dangly things that are hanging off this lot. No, I love Christmas.
Angly things.
Yes, but the people watching on the video can't see those dangly things. And the people on audio just simply have to imagine those.
If they sign up to Patreon, maybe.
That's right. Yeah, we can get the photos in there. Yeah. No, I love Christmas. Always have done. I used to love carol concerts when I was a kid. I was in the choir at school, in junior school, and I absolutely loved it. It was a magical time of the year, and I've got very happy memories of Christmas. And I come from quite a sort of extrovert arty family, so someone would sit down to the piano and play carols and we'd sing and do and my dad would always be going about, oh yes, it's a good Saxon ball, a good Saxon shout, let's do that, let's have a good Christmas carol, let's have the boar's head. And so there's lots of fun, and really I don't do as much myself as an adult, but unfortunately, as I perhaps would like, but that's usually because I'm working at Christmas time as a storyteller, telling lots of Christmas stories, and out every evening doing that right up until Christmas Day. But no, I absolutely love Christmas, love it.
I was wondering, have you got obviously a lot of your stories? I mean, I've never seen you tell in person, but I saw a few of the ones during lockdown you were doing. I watched, and I was wondering if you have a favourite sort of supernatural entity, cryptid sort of folklore element. If there was any one particular character that was a favourite of yours.
I've got a big soft spot for the undead. I mean, who hasn't? But and I think
if they've been undead for long enough, I suppose they've got lots of soft spots too.
Hey, yeah. And as a kid, I was really frightened of ghosts. And I can't remember, it's a quote from a book somewhere, but I do not believe in ghosts, but I am afraid of them. I think is certainly true for me.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. But also, the undead. Not so much zombies, but kind of sort of sentient living corpses. The sort of stuff you'd either get in sort of stories about Egypt, about walking mummies, or the Norse stories where the dead are kind of properly solid and walk around. So I like those guys, and of course and when it comes to winter time, and when it comes to the kind of halfway through the dark, and the days are short and the nights are long and the sunset creeps down and the mists rise, that's definitely the time when the barrows open and their residents start strolling around those misty fields. There you go.
Oh, got a bit of a shudder there.
Are you into Christmas movies? And if so, do you have a favourite? And I think Andy can answer this too, because I don't think we'd covered this last year.
I don't think we did. No. It's funny enough. Researching for this episode, I nearly did the one I did last year, but I was like, nope, told that one last year. Well, you go first, Jason. You're the guest.
I suppose it's a bit weird, kind of professionally. I tend to tell a Christmas carol quite a lot around Christmas time, and because there are lots of bits in there, lots of bits of text that I need to remember. I never memorize the whole story as a script, but there are certain turns of phrase or phrases that happen in a Christmas carol that I need to get in there, and I need to make sure it's right. I need to be it. So I watch a Christmas carol a lot.
Which version? Oh, well, fair enough. Yeah, lots of different versions.
Yeah, absolutely, because they all take different stuff. I mean, the Muppets one is the one everybody cites, which is great, and that is really good.
That's my favourite Christmas film.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's really well done. There's a bit more singing in there than there is in Charles Dickens' original text, but it's not quite as many frogs. But I also really like the 1950 something black and white version with Alastair Sim.
Yes,
which is lovely, and it's lugubrious, and oh, dear boy, Alastair Sim and his oh no, yes, oh dear, and his very sort of and his hooded eyes, and I think actually that's possibly my favourite, because I find Michael Caine a bit too barky and a bit too rough, whereas I like Scrooge looking a bit more frightened in the black and white one.
That's the one my
Mm.
dad always put on when I was a kid. He's a big fan of that one. So I sort of grew up with that one. I like Patrick Stewart's one as well.
I've not seen that one.
I'm pretty sure I
No,
saw
I haven't seen
maybe it was a play or something, or maybe I
Yeah,
just
no,
dreamed it.
he has done it. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
cost me too much on Amazon Prime, so I didn't watch it.
Um,
I did watch another one recently with George C. Scott, I think his name is. He's an American actor, and he does pretty well with an English accent most of the time. It's made in 1984, and this guy must have been in probably his 60s when he made it. And he's a very commanding presence. So suddenly Scrooge becomes actually quite a bit like Michael Caine's, quite intimidating, and much less fearful. And that was pretty good. But again, they take bits out and they edit it and they make it better. And each of them are different. So I have to watch loads of them and then listen to the audiobooks and then maybe even look at the book sometimes.
Is it
Yeah.
like with like Beowulf, when you tell Beowulf, like, you know, everyone's supposed to start with that what sort of thing?
Mm.
Do you always start with Marley was
Marley
dead
was dead to
begin with?
Yeah, I mean it's almost like, you know, you could imagine, and this will never happen, I think, in my lifetime to a storyteller, but you can imagine if you were in an arena doing it, those first few words, Marley was dead to begin with, and the crowd would go wild. There'd be, you know, there'd be people holding lighters up and waving.
No, you got to do it properly. You got to say Marley was dead, and then you've got to like hold the microphone out for the crowd to shout to begin with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do Freddie
Lights
Mercury style.
go on, pyros, you know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I do every time. And also, if nothing else, it's a great start to a story.
Yeah.
And it's the anchor, and it's the bit that kind of almost you can see people waiting for when you start. You know, Marley was dead, and then they're like, "Oh, brilliant! This is going to be all right. I'll relax a bit now. I didn't know what was going to happen on this weird storyteller bloke, but yeah, okay, this seems all right. Carry on."
Do you always include the light the lamp, not the rat bit as well, or is that
No. Yeah. There are fewer anthropomorphic animals in my tellings, but yeah.
Ocean confessed to me. We went to Butser last weekend. I was running a course, and on the way back, she confessed and she said, "Daddy, I have to say, I'm not really into the Muppets Christmas Carol."
What?
Give
her time. She's young.
Not speak to her the whole way home.
Literally, I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah, she'll come round. She'll come round. Is she? I forget how old she is now.
She's going to be 8 on Saturday, so in 2 days' time as we record this. Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's probably at that age where suddenly what was really cool and sweet when she was young is now not very cool. And then when she gets older again, it'll be nice and nostalgic. It's like, I mean, in answer to what's your favourite film? It's not a film, but every year I watch the 1984, I think it was, BBC TV series of The Box of Delights. DVD.
I don't know that.
Well, thanks for having me on, and see you guys. It's absolutely charming and magical. Yeah, it's absolutely charming and magical. It's a proper Christmas story, and it's full of really interesting ideas of sort of old magic and things, with loads of really shonky BBC effects of dreadful stuff. Now that the effects are dreadful, but it's so wonderfully sort of charming and evocative. That it's great. I mean, if you showed it up to Ocean, she'd be like, "What's this? What's this nonsense?" And that effect is rubbish. You know, you see through the special effects. But yeah, it's a children's book. And yeah, every year, I hope lots of people listening will recognise that. If not, go out there now, order the DVD set. Oh, it's going to be on BBC 4, I think, over Christmas. So there we go.
Yeah.
Quickly to answer them, mine is either Father Christmas, the animated film from the same guys that did the Snowman.
Oh yeah,
it's another blooming Christmas. That one.
Yeah.
Or it is Ernest Scared Stupid.
I don't know what that is.
It's American film. Ernest. It was like a character, sort of bit of an idiot, sort of. Falling through adventures, you know. There was
yes,
Ernest Saves Christmas. The guy that voiced Slinky in Toy Story in the first film. But yeah,
that's really niche.
It is very niche, but it's a great film. It's a great film. Although saying that, it got kind of panned by the critics, but Red One was really good. I really enjoyed the with the Rockin' and Chris Evans recently, sort of where Santa's kidnapped and they got to go and save him.
Okay.
But yeah, what Craig's already said his, but I know Craig has one more question on you for you for Christmas films.
Go on then.
Yeah, based around the whole film conversation, we need to get to the bottom of this once and for all. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I don't know because I've never seen it.
Well, it's been great having you on. It's been great having you on. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's just one of those ones that's just escaped me, and now it's I feel it's sort of too far behind. And if I go and watch it now, I won't have the nostalgia of having seen it many years ago, nor will it be fresh. I'll be watching things.
I've had other friends that have watched it and enjoyed it still. They'd never seen it originally, so I think you'd be right.
Okay. Your voice is a little bit pinched now, Craig. You sound like
I mean, Craig, when we kick him off for this, you've got to say "Happy Trails, Jason." You know.
Right. Oh, is this the oh no. I think I've got as a quote from it. No, can't remember it. And all it popped into my head was "Hasta la vista," which I know isn't that. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it yippee-ki-yay and the rest of it?
Motherfucker.
Yeah, you can swear on this one.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Is it yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker? Yeah. Is that?
Yeah.
That's
You're gonna go, no, that was the BBC TV adaptation for children of something.
That's the other version of A Christmas Carol that I really like.
No, that was Ernest Saves Christmas, I'm sure. But yeah.
So what does Andy? What do you think?
You know what? A Christmas film is what you make it. I maintain that Lord of the Rings is a Christmas film.
Cool.
It's got all the cheery elements: good food, good cheer, good company. It's got the darkness finally being overcome by the light, and they came out at Christmas. They're epics, they're cozy films, and that is one of the most important things for me in a Christmas film, is it being a cozy film. I mean, I wouldn't normally associate Lord of the Rings with Christmas, but
you've got Eye of Sauron Christmas jumper on.
just for the listeners, I'm wearing my Lord of the Rings Eye of Sauron Christmas jumper. But yeah,
which
for me,
has been wearing all year.
Oh yeah, it's a bit crusty now.
When you say Lord of the Rings, are you referring to the entire trilogy, or are you referring to specifically one of the films?
So overall, the entire trilogy, but mostly Fellowship.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which I think it's a hard contest, but I think that is the best of the trilogy.
Yeah. And the director's cut lasts about the same time as it takes to roast an enormous turkey as well. So
exactly, that's the whole process. Crack open the wine, put that on. Sort of turkey's done by the time Boromir's full of arrows.
Yeah,
but then you end up having a nap during the Two Towers. So there's always a nap after
that's
dinner.
all right. As long as you wake up for the battle, that's all right.
I did a once. Actually, it was around Christmas. Did a drinking game around the 3 extended versions throughout the day. Sort of had breakfast, did the first one, had lunch, did the second one, dinner, third one. Absolutely sloshed by the end of it.
I bet. What were the rules?
So every time there was a homoerotic look between Sam and Frodo, every time Legolas or Aragorn flicked their hair in that certain way, every time there was this sort of epic, sort of line uttered while someone stares off into the distance or intensely at someone. Those were the kind of rules. So it was kind of impossible not to get drunk, really.
Yeah. You were just chugging.
Yeah. Every time I find myself weirdly attracted to Aragorn. But yeah, so to me, overall, it doesn't have to be a completely Christmas themed film to be a Christmas film, and Die Hard definitely goes into that category of Christmas films. What about you, Craig?
I watch it every Christmas, so yes, it's definitely a Christmas film.
There you go.
Although I believe that Bruce Willis came in on the argument previously saying that it's not a Christmas film.
And I guess he doesn't get to decide.
No, exactly.
It's whether it's us viewers, if we like it and we like it at Christmas. It's like, we only had turkeys for the last 400 years. You can't go, well, turkey's not a Christmas food. It clearly has become adopted as a Christmas food and it's now here to stay.
Yeah.
Die Hard, the Turkey of films.
Yeah.
But I find like with any TV series or film, when it's set at Christmas, I can't watch it any other time of the year. So if you're in the middle of a series and suddenly it's a Christmas episode, I have to skip it unless it's Christmas.
Oh no, I'm
So
all
in
right.
which case, Die Hard is a Christmas film because I can only watch it at Christmas.
My mum's an incredibly Christmassy person, right? She fucking loves Christmas. So I think it was her birthday, and like there was no one. I'd already moved to Dorset, and there was no one going to be around. My dad was working away or something. So we got her a subscription to this Christmas Sky channel, and I ordered her loads of Christmas stuff. I even ordered the cat Christmas treats just to turn up the day before. I was like, "Have yourself a Christmassy birthday, like snug up." Just I think you can enjoy Christmas if you're that sort of person. I think you can enjoy it sort of other times of the year.
Yeah.
You're just not Christmassy enough, Craig.
Yeah. No. I don't start Christmas until mid-November. I'm not Christmassy enough.
Fair.
I don't like it when shops start. I like Christmas, but I don't like when the shops start doing Christmas super early. I went to the department store when I was young, and they opened the Christmas decorations department because I went and worked in it. They opened the Christmas decorations department the second week of September. So yeah, and it kind of loses the magic by the end of it.
You need to do Halloween first, right?
Well, that's the thing nowadays. You do, don't you? Like you see the shops. I remember going around and it was the eve, like it was late night on Halloween, and I saw these poor bastards that were working, pulling down the cobwebs and putting tinsel up, like literally on the like early hours of the 1st of November.
For pity's sake, can't you give them a few minutes? All these shelves will be crawling with Christmas decorations.
Elves and tinsel.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, while this is a Christmas episode, we're actually recording this on the 5th of December. So, Shona Krampusnik, everyone. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hey.
Yeah.
And I understand you're a bit of a fan of Krampus, Jason.
I am. I love a bit of Krampus. I realised that I first encountered Krampus and the sort of Krampus and Perchta and all the other kind of characters that sort of hang around with him at some point in the mid-90s when I was doing some work in Switzerland, and it must have been December. It must have been around about this time. It was probably Krampus night, and I was walking through Geneva or Zurich. I can't remember. It was a very long time ago now. But we're walking through the streets, and then there were all these people just suddenly appearing, and there was this of the big sort of cowbells, and there were people with the big sort of hag masks and the Krampuses going. And I just stood there. And Switzerland is so orderly. And so kind of the people who I was staying with were saying, when we moved here from Britain, I got some change in a shop and someone handed me a note and I just kind of crumpled it up and put it in my pocket, and the person tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'm sorry, you probably don't realise this as you're not from here, but actually defacing the currency is illegal in this country. And someone else who had the police come around and knock on his door on a Sunday because he was doing some DIY. And of course, these are the police who are like action men with international rescue with forage caps and then big guns and stuff, basically saying, you can't be doing this drilling on a Sunday, I'm afraid. It's a day of rest.
Wow.
I
know you can get locked up for speeding there, can't you? I think.
Oh, I can imagine so, yeah. And at the same time, it's got a huge amount of gun ownership. People have got, assault rifles, but it's a very different gun culture. This is kind of like, well, in case the army needs to stand up, we have these, and we have bunkers in the basements of our schools, in the mountains and things. But yeah, so suddenly seeing this incredibly sort of lawful country, these things kind of come pouring down through these sort of alleys down through the town was brilliant. But yeah, Krampus is if people don't know what or who Krampus is, think of a huge, hairy, shaggy demon with massive, long, twisted goat horns and a great big grimacing face with a huge tongue that stretches out. And these days, a lot of people know Krampus from the Krampus runs in big cities, where it's all very organised and it goes through a big street and there are barriers and things. But traditionally, it happens up in the mountains, up in parts of Germany and Austria and Switzerland. And you'll get groups of, it's a bit like Morris dancers, you'll get the groups of the local lads who'll dress up in these great big shaggy costumes that are made from goat skins, long fur. and have masks that nowadays they're all, sort of latex and fiberglass and things, but they would traditionally have been wooden carved and handed down from father to son to father to son. And they go out causing mischief, but they don't cause too much damage because they're always accompanied by St. Nicholas, who is in the form of a bishop, because St. Nicholas was a bishop during the Roman Empire, and so he's kind of keeping them all in order as they're going around rattling chains and thrashing people with bundles of birch twigs, and then turning up at houses and then piling in through the front door, and then St. Nicholas gets out his big book and opens it up, and he's had a word. Beforehand, the parents have had a word with whoever's playing St. Nicholas, and they've got the naughty or nice bit, in the book, and so he can read out to the children, things he knows they've done, which is naughty or nice, which must be terrifying when you're young to have this lot suddenly turn up. Because also all the Krampuses are half pissed and sort of dragging furniture outside and trying to take it outside and put it in the garden and stuff, and making a nuisance of themselves and running around. And the threat is that if you haven't been a good boy, if you haven't been a good girl, then you'll be thrashed with chains and birch twigs, and you'll be stuffed in a basket and taken to hell. None of this kind of just like, oh, you'll get a lump of coal and you won't get the present you asked for. No, you're going to hell in a basket on the back of one of those great big hairy demons. So that was the kind of tradition that where it kind of comes from, that now has become these great big Krampus runs through kind of the streets of lots of kind of big cities and stuff. I'm wearing a little Krampus bauble. I don't know if you can see that there. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I've got a whole box of Krampus baubles, of course. There we go.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
If anyone was going to have a box of Krampus baubles, it was going to be Jason Buck.
Here we go. There it is. Yeah. On the other side, I've got my Mari Fluid, the horse head, skeletal horse head, which again is another kind of nice Christmas tradition of people going around with a hobby horse made out of a horse's skull that can go clack, 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 clack. And again, they go from door to door. This is a Welsh tradition. I don't know if you guys know about it. I'm sure.
I think I saw a short on that once.
Yeah.
Someone might have done a short on it last Christmas, maybe.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you know all about it. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of, it's fascinating. These kind of very dark, whilst you've got this kind of Coca-Cola red Santa Claus and ho 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 and Father Christmas, there's a lot of dark stuff out there in the shadows of midwinter, and that's the stuff I like. Well, this other little thing I've got here, which is a nice little sort of little laser cut wooden Christmas tree decoration of she's a jolly little troll wife or troll woman called Grýla, and I got this when I was in Iceland, but she's brilliant. She has been married 3 times, and she's eaten her first 2 husbands, and her third husband, well, who knows what's going to happen with him. But she's the mother of the Yule Lads. Do you guys know about them? You did a short on last Christmas.
We did the 12 days of weirdness.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so that's her. That's their mother. Yeah. So yeah, and it's.
We only briefly dipped into them. We never went into huge detail.
If you've got any deep lore on it, please tell us. Because.
Yeah, well, okay. So these days, if you go and see the Yule Lads, it'll mostly be a bunch of dads who are dressed up in red Father Christmas costumes. Red with the white fur trims and big sort of white beards, all looking the same. And all the sort of the Yule Lads that kind of exist now have all been pared down and sanitized, and so they've all got names like Boltaslicker, pot licker, and sausage swiper, and window rattler, and things. And they do all these kind of slightly spooky things. But you take it back. You take it back to a point before they were sanitized, and these things are horrific, and they're coming for you. If you're a child and you're bad and you're wicked, they're coming for you. And these are sort of trolls that are flesh-eating trolls, and there's one that has its lungs on the outside of its body and stuff, kind of, which is quite a departure from some dads dressed up in Santa Claus outfits, having had a few glasses of Icelandic vodka. They're much bigger and darker and dangerous. But they've all been they've had their wings clipped and their corners knocked off over the years.
I was going to say, I don't think we went into that detail. That's amazing.
There was a nice story I read. I was reading about the Krampus stuff, about a guy. There's a great book just called Krampus, and I think it's his uncle was a sort of traditional Krampus play. He's now an old man, the uncle is, but when he was a lad and he was given his Krampus costume for the first time, and they were all going out for the first time, and yeah, they all went up and loaded up with loads of Austrian lager, and then went out into the streets and went from house to house and caused mischief. And then they encountered another group of Krampuses and a St. Nicholas. And there is a protocol for what happens here. But this lad didn't know. So this young lad got selected to go forward, and you basically have a champion Krampus from each side, and this other guy came up from the other side, all still got their costumes on and their masks and stuff, and they've all been on the sauce all day, and it's late into the evening, and he walked up and he pushed this guy's uncle backwards, and so the guy's uncle turned round and belted him and punched him in the face. At which point, St. Nicholas has had to step in and go, no. This isn't what happens. It's like, and basically it becomes like a kind of Krampus sumo match. You have your two Krampuses, and it becomes a sort of wrestling, shoving contest that's all kind of good-natured until either somebody wins, getting pushed back, or falls over, or the St. Nicholases step in and break it up and adjudicate, and then everybody goes on their way. But I quite like that kind of like that's set there safe. That's what you do when you meet.
So I don't want to give any major spoilers away because I think people should go and see it because it's a fun film. I don't know if it's even still on at the cinemas, which seems a bit weird if it's not Red One, but Krampus is in it, and they do sort of include something a little bit like that without giving too much away. There's a bit of a feat of strength thing against Krampus that you got to do. He's
Are you sponsored by Red One, Andy?
Go and see it, man. Go and see it. It's a good film. You asked me about it, I seem to remember.
Are you Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
I am. I'm glad you noticed the similarities.
Yeah, indistinguishable. Yeah.
From the shoulders.
It's because Zoom compresses the image. You see.
There we go. That's it. That's the eyebrow. Yeah.
If you smell what Andy's cooking.
So obviously Christmas, it is a time for cheer. It's a time for merriment and eating too much and eating food that is really nice, but annoyingly they only bring out at Christmas. I'm looking at you, little cheesy footballs. But it's also traditionally, like before all that and before, jolly Coca-Cola Santa, it is a time for ghost stories. It's a time for drawing the blankets around and hunkering down by the fire and scaring the shit out of each other. So I think we've all got a few Christmas stories, haven't we?
I might have got the wrong MO because I didn't do ghost stories.
Doesn't have to be a ghost story, just maybe a little bit weird, a little bit sinister. It can be the time for the weird. We're bringing it back to the weird. That's what we're doing.
I tried to bring it light-hearted because we've had some fairly dark things over the last couple of months. So I'm like, no, we're going light.
What are you talking about? I think the sort of between baby killers and people chopping up their rivals and turning them into soap and things like that. It's all merry stuff, right?
Well, would you like me to give you a ghost story and then you can lighten it afterwards, Craig, with something with a palate cleanser afterwards?
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a slightly shorter version of a story that also comes from Iceland. In Iceland, there is a place called Darkwater. It has its own Icelandic name, but I don't speak Icelandic. I have tried and I failed, so I won't. But there is a place in Iceland, and there is a river. The river there is called Darkwater. And this story actually happens not so long ago, but far, far earlier than you or I would ever know. And it takes place in winter at Yule as Christmas is approaching. Because in Iceland there was a young woman who was a farmer, and she kept the farm by herself, and all day long she would be out caring for the crops and caring for the animals, and she would look after the house and look after the farm and look after herself. But she was being courted, she was being wooed, let us say, by a young deacon, a man who worked at the church in the village that wasn't so far away. Well, it wasn't so far away as the crow flies, but there was a great and torrid river called the Dark Water between them. And when the deacon rode his horse from his village, he would have to go all the way upstream to the bridge and over the bridge and then all the way back downstream before he went and met his love, the farmer, in her house. But come wintertime, as I'm sure everybody knows, Iceland is cold. It is very cold. And as the winter comes on, not only does the snow fall and settle, but the water freezes. The water in the ponds and the pools and the puddles freezes hard, but also so does the water in the river, and the water in dark water froze so thick and so hard that the deacon was able to ride his horse down the bank of the river and carefully across the frozen water, back up the bank on the other side, to go and visit the woman that he loved. And he was hoping that if all went well this Christmas, perhaps a proposal would be in the offing and maybe a marriage next year, early in the new year, where he and his wife could live in happiness together. And so, in order to get towards that position, he decided to invite the young farmer to his dance at his local village hall. And on one of his visits he rode his horse along through the snow and carefully down the bank and across the ice and up the bank and off to her house, and there they sat by her warm fire as the logs crackled and the fire roared, and they sat and talked of this and that. And he asked her would she like to come to the Christmas Eve dance at the village hall in his local village. And she said, yes, that sounds wonderful, I would love to. He said, very well then, I will arrive on Christmas Eve, and I will arrive just after dark, and I will come and collect you. So be ready with your dancing clothes and your Christmas glad rags, and we will have a wonderful evening, and then I will escort you home afterwards. Of course, she said. And the two, as they separated, and for the time that this story happens in, and him being a man of the church, they embraced, but all that was all good and above board and properly. They said goodbye. She waved goodbye and watched him until he disappeared amongst the snowy fields, and she shut her door and stayed back in the warmth. The deacon, feeling his heart glad and singing in that winter landscape, he rode down to the river and down the bank and out over the frozen water. But that year had not been as cold as other years, and the river had not frozen so thickly. And so as the horse was only halfway across, there was a whining creak and a crack like a whip, and the ice opened underneath beast and man, and both fell through. And as he fell into the water, the back of the deacon's head was caught, crack on the back of his head, on the thick ice as he went under the water. Now, it was the next day that a farmer who was taking his cows down by the river to break up some ice so they could have a drink, he saw a horse that he recognised as the deacon's horse, standing cold and wet and shivering, steaming in the morning air by the side of the river. And there, at the edge of the water where the ice had broken, there was the cold, wet body of the deacon, dead. Not only had he obviously drowned, but at the same time the farmer saw the back of the man's head and saw where the skin was split open and the skull was revealed, pure white bone as white as the snow. And sadly, the deacon's body was recovered and taken back to the church, and there the ground was broken open with pickaxes and mattocks, and with ceremony and with prayers the deacon was laid to rest, and the earth piled back in and covered him over. In those days there weren't any letters, there weren't any emails, there weren't any texts. And so the young farming woman in her house, she didn't know what had happened to her love. She didn't know that no one was coming to collect her on Christmas Eve, so she continued to get ready. And on Christmas Eve, there she was, in the dress that she had stitched herself and added ribbons and fripperies to the edge. She had a new coat that she had made hanging on the peg by the door, ready to put on. And she waited as the sun set, waiting for her love. And there was a knock at the door. Well, when she opened the door, When she opened the door, there, standing against the sunset, against the darkness, she could see the silhouette of the man she loved, the Deacon of Darkwater. There he was in his long coat with his wide-brimmed hat, and he said, "Are you ready? It is time for us to go back to my village to dance." "Yes," she said, "yes. Well, let me just get my coat." And as she was putting her coat on, she'd only had time to put one arm into one sleeve before he reached out, took her hand, mounted his horse, and swung her up behind him. "Hold on," she said, I haven't got my coat quite on yet." But his heels kicked into the horse's flanks, and off they went, upstream to the bridge, and up to the bridge. And as they were travelling along, she held on to him, and she thought, "He feels so cold. He is so cold and so quiet. What is wrong? What has happened? What has changed between us?" But as they went up and over the bridge, that hump at the top of the bridge, the horse gave a little jump, and as they landed, the deacon's hat, his wide-brimmed ecclesiastical hat, slipped forward and tipped down at the front and up at the back, and she saw that great wound on the back of his head, where the flesh was separated and the bone as white as snow was there. And she knew what had happened, and she knew why the man she loved was so cold and his skin so hard. When they got to the village, she could see the hall in the distance, the lights and the twinkling fire and the candles in the windows. She could hear the sound of music being played and the sound of laughter and merriment. But before they got close, they reached the cemetery, the graveyard of the little church where the deacon worked. And he dismounted and helped her slide off the horse, tied his horse to the fence. And then, even though her coat was only half on, he took her hand in one hand and placed his hand on her waist with the other, and in the snow the two whirled and twirled and span and danced to the music. And as they swirled and twirled and span, the snow flew up in flurries and fountains around them, and around and around and around they went to the music that was floating out of the village hall. But then she saw that they were getting closer and closer to a grave that was opened, and a grave where the earth was piled up and out and onto the sides and looking black underneath the sky, where in fact it should have been covered by snow, but it had been opened so recently, and closer they got. As they got to the edge of the grave, he spun and turned round, and holding just her hand in his, backed towards the grave and pulled her with him and said, "We will be together forever." But she wriggled and span, and he grabbed at her, but he grabbed just that sleeve of the coat, the only one that she had managed to put on, and her arms slipped out, and he toppled back into that grave, and the earth poured in like water, like waves covering him. Well, she ran to the village hall, and she told people what had happened, and some strong men came out to look at the grave and to see that it was disturbed, that it had been turned over. And so they picked up a great and heavy stone and laid it on top of that bare grave. And the woman, well, eventually she went back to her farm. And that night was the last night that she had ever danced, and the last night she ever would dance. And she lived out her days alone, in solitude, on her farm. But if you go to Iceland today and you find that village just outside the cemetery, just outside the fence of the church there is a big stone on the ground. And legend has it that that is the stone that keeps the Deacon of Darkwater from rising from the ground and pursuing his bride again. Thank you.
Fantastic.
There's a jolly Christmas story for you.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's I know that's very it's even obviously a lot later, it's very much with those Norse origins of the
Oh, yeah.
the drow sort of rising up and,
Absolutely.
amongst the living.
Yeah.
And it's based on a true story, you said, yeah?
Yep, if you Google the Deacon of Darkwater, Iceland, you'll find quite quickly there's lots of touristy things there of where you can go there and there's statues of awful, horrific looking men on horses. And a whacking great stone on the floor, on the ground, sorry, just outside the fence to the graveyard in the church in that village.
Wow.
Brilliant.
So there you go. It's not just a story, but it's a true story. There you go.
So, Craig has a palate cleanser. Now, I have a ghost story as well. So, well, one or two. I'll definitely do one, maybe another one. But shall I do the ghost story next and then you palate cleanse, or do you want to do a little lightener in the middle?
So I've been reading a book lately.
Well done. You're getting there.
See here another one. So this is the Xmas Files. And it's all Klaus encounters. I feel like it only works if I say Klaus rather than Klaus. And it's kind of a compilation of stories. A lot of them are taken from the internet and various places. So I just put a few notes down of, I guess, some of my favorites. Tried to pick a bit of a variety as well. On a crisp Christmas Eve night over 30 years ago, a young Jimmy and his friend were out late enjoying the quiet streets of their Scottish neighbourhood. Suddenly a strange noise pierced the stillness, a distant clanging like bells growing louder and closer. They looked up to see a breathtaking sight, a sleigh pulled by reindeer carrying a figure that could only be Santa Claus, soaring low over the rooftops. Though dumbfounded, the boys watch in awe as the magical scene unfolds before their eyes. The sleigh and its celestial cargo vanish as quickly as it appears, leaving the boys in disbelief. Excited and a bit scared, they rush home to share their extraordinary tale. However, their families dismissed the story as a flight of fancy. Disheartened, the two friends kept their secret, fearing ridicule and disbelief. However, years later, he reconnects with his childhood friend, and Jimmy decides to revisit the unforgettable night. To his surprise, his friend confirms the encounter, sharing the same sense of wonder and the same experience of disbelief from their families. Empowered by this shared memory, Jimmy began to share his story with others, including his wife. And while met with skepticism, he remained steadfast in his belief, hoping to inspire others to embrace the extraordinary and to never dismiss the inexplicable.
Nice.
Right. So Santa sightings.
Yes.
Klaus encounters of the third kind.
Yeah.
So the book actually does break it down into first, second, and third kind sightings, funnily enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's a third, I guess. No, what's that?
Of the first kind, there are accounts of seeing Santa-like objects in the sky. Tales from people who swear they saw a flying sleigh, or to pilots who have witnessed strange lights in the sky during Christmas. So that's what I just did. It's a first kind. Then we have Klaus encounters of the second kind is physical evidence left on the ground. According to witnesses, these stories include mysterious presence or strange boot prints or odd sleigh and deer tracks left in the most unlikely spots, like on the top of a roof.
Do you know, when my son was young, and he's now 20 and massive, but when he was little, they used to live in houses that had open fires, and you'd be amazed that in the mornings, a Christmas morning, you'd come down and the carrot and the mince pie and the port or the sherry had gone, but there was always a boot print by the fire as well.
That's dedication, man. Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's a second kind encounter.
There you go.
Yes. And then the last one is the third kind, which are actual run-ins with the man in red and white.
Right.
Yeah.
Those must be difficult to distinguish between somebody collecting for charity or someone going to the pub dressed as Santa and actual Santa.
Very opportunistic thieves breaking into houses on Christmas Eve.
So yeah, dressed as Santa, yeah.
Harry and Merv.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing about that, which is lovely and charming. I remember having dreams as a child of looking up and seeing the Santa Claus's sleigh in the sky. But
Me too.
But then I start it starts to unravel with me because I kind of go, then I sort of go, well, who's that? Well, it's Father Christmas. Well, who is the Father Christmas then? It's St. Nicholas then. But then what about the other traditions from all the other countries where he's not like that at all? And he's actually he was actually born in Turkey during the Roman Empire and he was a Greek bishop. and he died,
Yeah.
I think, in the 4th century, and has never had any capability with a sleigh or any attachment to reindeer. And kind of, this is something we've invented more recently. And so you go, well, either that's nonsense, so it can't be Father Christmas, or do we invent these entities through our collective consciousness and the kind of the
Well, that's a very good.
will.
That's a very good point to something I was going to bring up later, but I could do
Okay.
now. Because I had a theory and it comes up in this book. Have you heard of a tulpa?
No.
So it's like a thought form. So it's kind of when someone puts a lot of thought and energy into creating, I suppose, like a being.
Yeah.
And I wonder, with all the children that believe in Santa Claus over the years, if tulpas are possible, could Santa have been turned into a tulpa? In which case, he exists in some form.
Yeah, and in multiple forms of the varying traditions, like the guys who are kind of shepherding the Krampuses, and like the Sinterklaas in the Netherlands, who's there again as the bishop, and then you've got this guy in the red suit who's unaccountably moved to the North Pole. Why is he in the North Pole? I don't understand.
It's like in the night before Christmas, they have 8. Is it 8 tiny reindeer? I believe it says. He's actually miniature. He's not even full size in the poem.
There is that theory. One of the origins that he was supposed to be a dwarf, you know, so maybe that's why he's got miniature ones. But
yeah.
There's
a lot of, I know there is a Father Christmas figure in Finland called Joulupukki, who is like a kind of bit more like a wild man, and so maybe the top of Finland you get Lapland, and so there are sort of syncretizations of wild men, forest men. The whole, if you look at old Father Christmas pictures, he's kind of wearing green, and he's much more foresty and much more kind of Herd the Hunter or wild man, green man sort of thing. And then we've all kind of regimented him a bit later on and given him various other attributes.
I was just going to say, like, the idea that all these different versions of this guy could exist, but then that also would mean that things like the Krampus exists, which is quite terrifying.
In a less powerful form, though, because less people believe in the Krampus than Father Christmas.
Yeah, although more and more people are every year as the Krampus runs go. We've got them in Yorkshire now. I mean, this is something from the Alps and from sort of Germanic, Swiss, Italian Alps. Now we've got Whitby. The Whitby Krampus runs. So it's everywhere. He's in.
We need to do an episode up in Whitby. If there's anywhere weird in the north of England, I mean, we've got Glastonbury in the south, but Whitby is the weird capital of northern England.
Absolutely, guys should definitely do that. Yeah.
But I'm going to counter your tulpa and put forward Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, Father Christmas is a fae. He's of the fae realm. He can transform himself into a human size or a very small size. Fae. He takes offerings of his favorite foods. Fae. He plays tricks on people, leaving them cold and shit. That's for naughty children. Fae. I think Santa Claus is fae. I think he's a fairy.
Right.
Lives in the North Pole, probably in a barrow, I reckon.
Yeah, a tundra barrow.
Fairy.
Yeah.
Fairy. Fairy.
So my argument is Santa is fae.
Nice.
And I'm absolutely going to make up a rule set for that and including in my next D&D session that's falling close to Christmas.
Brilliant. Sanity Claus, the fae, the unseelie.
The unseelie. I think he's got his own court. I think it's separate from the Seelie and the unseelie court. He's got lots of elves under his command. Fae.
Yeah, absolutely. Magical woodland creatures.
He's got a bag of holding.
Yeah. I like the was it NASA did the calculations to work out what speed Santa Claus would actually have to travel if he visited all the children in one night.
Yeah, because I mean,
something quantum, isn't it? He has to exist in a quantum state because you can't actually go fast enough, not even at light speed. He has to kind of be in a quantum state to kind of be in several places at once.
Could be
Or
a time traveler.
or in and out of portals to the Fae realm.
Little Fae, Fae.
Because it was I was going to bring this up later, but NORAD, the North American
Yeah.
sort of the Oriental defense guys, they every year they do a Santa tracker where you can look around the world. You can go on their tracking system and it will show you where Santa Claus is, and it will give you like these NORAD updates on Santa's progress.
Brilliant.
Andy watches that every Christmas, don't you?
You say that I kind of do. I always check it. I always check it. It's like my mum told me about it years ago, and I just kind of kept doing it.
There's a website which I like to check, which is www.isitchristmas.com. And you get a one-word a white screen with one in large font, a one-word answer. So www.isitchristmas.com. Christmas spelled with a CHRIST.
Yeah.
And what do you get?
What do I get? Let's have a look. No.
Well, it might not come as a surprise that for 364 days of the year, that's the answer you'll get. But you have to remember, and I have checked it on Christmas Day, and it does change. That's what that website does.
Fantastic.
So I do have a Christmas ghost story. Now, this is one that I heard a while ago. I've only just done some proper reading into it. But there are a lot of Christmas ghost stories that are traditionally told around Christmas, right? And a lot of those were just Victorian writings. When I was researching this stuff, so many of them entered the sphere of sort of people believing that they were actual ghost stories. I mean, you get some people that think, Sherlock Holmes was a real person. A lot of people think that a lot of these Victorian characters and figures were real people. And that happened with the ghost stories. But a few of them were from sort of original stories that then got turned into these sort of pulp Victorian stories that were published every Christmas, which were phenomenal in a way because they were one of the first truly sort of accessible fiction for the masses in a time that literacy rates start going up. So a lot of people, this would be the first sort of literature they would consume would be these ghost stories around Christmas. But this story does have some origins rooted in truth, apparently. This is the story of the Mistletoe Bride. And I don't know if either of you have heard this one before.
Yeah.
I
So
think so.
it takes place at an old manor house, which several counties claim, but is most likely to be in Bramshill House in Hampshire, which I've chosen for this telling. Or another strong claimant is Minster Lovell Hall in Oxfordshire. So, also, I don't know if you know this, but weddings were quite a popular thing to have at Christmas back then, sort of Victorian times and further back. Families were together, there was that sort of sense of cheer. And for a lot of the lower classes, this was all classes, but for a lot of the lower classes, it was kind of the best place to get time off. Even Scrooge had to give, sort of his staff time off at Christmas. It was also believed to bring a blessing upon the wedding, although, as we'll see in this case, it doesn't always work. So a young bride named Anne had just married her husband Hugh that very Christmas morning. The joyous couple, their family, their friends all retired to Bramshill House to celebrate. Keeping to Christmas traditions, they were playing games and dancing and drinking, none more energetically than the young Anne. She whirled and twirled with a sprig of mistletoe clasped to her chest. Soon people began to tire, though, because, they'd had a bit to drink, they'd had a bit to eat. So a new game was suggested, a little bit less energetic. So an old timeless favourite was suggested, a good old-fashioned game of hide and seek. Now, Anne's face lit up at this, exclaiming that she loved this game and she would hide first, and she told her husband with a wink that he should definitely make sure he was the first one to find her. Leaving the blushing groom behind, she skipped off, and after the count had been completed, all the other guests set out to look for her. Apparently, back then, it was one hider and lots of seekers, not the other way around, which it tends to be now. So they looked for minutes. Minutes turned into hours. Hugh went from joyous to nervous to distraught. She was nowhere to be seen. They searched the whole house, Then they started sending hunting parties out, searching the grounds, the woods, the streams, and the lakes, but there was no sign of Anne. Had she fled into the arms of another? Had she gotten cold feet? Had something happened to her? They feared they would never know. Now, this was recorded later by a poet called T.H. Bailey, and he wrote a poem called The Mistletoe Bough. In this version, he chose the Oxfordshire Hall, and Lord Lovell was the unfortunate groom, but the story remains the same whichever one you go for. After telling a similar Christmas wedding and about the game of hide and seek, it finishes with this. And the years flew by, their grief at last was told as a sorrowful tale long past. And when Lovell appeared, the children cried, "See, the old man weeps for his fairy bride. Oh, the mistletoe bough, oh, the mistletoe bough." At length an oak chest that had long lain hid was found in the castle. They raised the lid, and a skeleton form lay mouldering there in the bridal wreath of that lady fair. Oh, sad was her fate, in sportive jest she hid from her lord in the old oak chest. It closed with a spring and a dreadful doom. The bride lay clasped in her living tomb. Oh, the mistletoe bride, oh, the mistletoe bough. Some say it was a few years later and Hugh himself found the chest while sorting through some old things in the vast house of his. Some say that it was the younger relatives of Anne herself, but they beheld a ghastly sight. Young Anne had found herself what she thought had been the best hiding place, an old chest in the attic. Climbing inside, the lid slammed shut, the catch closing and trapping her inside. Desperate, all of her cries and her banging, the house was just too big and no one was close enough to hear her. Years later, when it was open, the chest held a skeletal figure still dressed in a bridal gown and still clutching the sprig of mistletoe to her chest. It is said that Bramshill House that many ghosts wander these grounds, from ghostly knights and green men to phantom children and spectral tennis players. But each Christmas, a lady in white, forlorn, is said to wander the halls, perhaps searching for her long-lost love and her friends and family still clutching that sprig of mistletoe. This story may be false. It may not even have anything to do with that hall. But many have said they have encountered her, from policemen to William Page, a folk historian, places the legend there without a doubt. And he says Anne is the daughter of John Cope, one of the old owners of the hall. He was the Baron of Bramshill. Now, among those who've seen the figure was none other than Michael I, the last king of Romania, who, staying in the house on a visit to England, requested that he be moved into a different room so that the lady in white does not disturb me. As he reported, she had appeared in the room several nights in a row, disturbing his sleep. People have also reported seeing an old bearded man watching through the window whenever she appears. Probably not Santa Claus, mind. The best guess that they put to this figure is it's either John Cope, her father, or the elderly widower himself, Hugh. Perhaps at last able to lay eyes on the bride he tragically lost many, many Christmases ago. So yeah, that's a cheery one.
Wow, lovely.
Yeah. I
Now,
realised halfway through I do know that story.
oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I think there are a few other kind of versions of that, but yeah, it's always dreadfully sad, though, isn't it? That kind of.
It is. It is.
I wanted to mention St. Nicholas because he's got some weird stuff about him.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is useful or not, but yeah, he was born in, I think, the 3rd century in what's now southern Turkey. Became a bishop, and lots of miracles are attributed to him. His gift giving comes about because he's a patron saint of many things, like children and toy makers and sailors and repentant thieves and various things, but also of prostitutes as well. He's the patron saint of prostitutes.
Sounds like a great Christmas.
All in one, everyone, all in one room.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Now the stockings hanging out make a lot more sense.
That's right. Yes, there's a very different kind of stocking filler. Because he was walking past the house of a poor man who had 3 daughters, and he had no dowry for the daughters, so they couldn't get married, and so they were going to have to go on the game. And so each day, as they were hanging up their stockings to dry, he dropped a bag of gold in each day, so 1 bag of gold for each of them, so they had a dowry, so they could get married and not have to live a life working as a prostitute. So that was, and he did that secretly as well. He was supposed to be generous, but secret. You know, he didn't to claim any claim the credit for it. But there's also things like he resurrected 3 children that had been killed by an innkeeper and put in a barrel of vinegar during a famine, and they were going to be sold for meat. And they'd been chopped up and put in this barrel of vinegar, and he resurrected the three boys and brought them back to life, which is quite bonkers. But the one I quite like, which I couldn't find any story to do with it, but that he chopped down a tree that was possessed by a demon, and that seems to be one of the most rubbish possessions I think there is. That, you know, you'd be really frustrated with that demon. Either the tree's animated and it can move and it's amazing, or it's just a bit spooky.
Have you seen Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead?
Yes. Oh,
I was going to say, yeah. The demonic trees, they can be pretty rough, man.
Oh, do you know what? I hadn't considered that. I was thinking,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was considering just like a plum tree somewhere that had a bit of an iffy feel about it, and he went and chopped it down. And he went, "There you go, job done. You're welcome."
That tree's definitely possessed, mate. Nah, look at it, it's evil. It's not doing anything. Yeah, but it's possessed. I'm gonna get rid of it for you.
Don't you worry about it. Yeah. This house is clean. There you go. That's my extra St. Nicholas bits for you there.
I like it.
Yeah. So I have something a bit closer to what we covered recently. So I have Mysterious Foo Fighters of World War II.
Yeah. Dave Grohl wasn't alive then.
Was he not? Oh, I'll scrap this bit then. We'll delete this. All right. Not those ones. The ones he named his band after. So yeah, during World War II, a strange unexplained phenomena captivated the attention of Allied pilots, the Foo Fighters. These mysterious objects, often described as balls of light, were reported to have followed and sometimes interacted with aircraft. The 415th Night Fighter Squadron had the most encounters with the Foo Fighters. One of their most notable experiences occurred during a bombing run over Germany. The pilots witnessed a formation of 5 or 6 red and green lights arranged in a T-shape. These lights exhibited extraordinary flight characteristics, far surpassing any known aircraft. They accelerated, decelerated, and changed direction with astonishing speed and agility, leading the pilots to speculate about the immense G-force that a human pilot would have to endure during such maneuvers. Throughout the week leading up to Christmas, the sightings of Foo Fighters increased, and on December 23rd, another flight of Allied aircraft encountered these enigmatic objects. This time, the Foo Fighters seemed to emerge from the ground as if taking off from rooftops, and they followed the planes of the 415th Squadron. After Christmas, the sightings of Foo Fighters gradually diminished, and while many theories have been proposed to explain these extraordinary events, the true nature of the Foo Fighters remains a mystery. Some pilots speculated that they were secret German weapons, while others suggested that they might be experimental Allied technology. However, the most imaginative theory was that they were, in fact, Santa Claus and his reindeer practicing their Christmas Eve flight.
Practicing. We know there's a bombing raid going on. We can see that, but we're just practicing. That's what
Santa still needs to practice. Otherwise, how do you think he gets so fast? He has a few clues.
If you say he needs to practice, the next thing it's all about midichlorians and it's all gone wrong. It's just magic, and that's why they're red and green, I suppose, isn't it? Nice festive colours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What more proof do you need?
Yeah, I have one other short thing that's related to that as well. Do you know of the astronaut Jimmy Lovell?
No.
So he went up on the Apollo 8 mission, and they were kind of going around the moon. They went around several times. He went up with a guy called Frank Borman and Bill Anders. And there's quite a famous Earthrise image.
Okay.
That everyone would recognize. That's one that they took. Yeah, but anyway, so as they were kind of doing their mission, they were flying around the moon, and they would go round to the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
And everyone would be a little bit tense because they would lose radio contact during this time.
During that, yeah.
Yeah, and it would just be static until eventually they would come back in on the radio. And this actually happened during Christmas. So I have some audio for you guys that I wanted to play.
Houston, Apollo 8, over. Hello, Apollo 8. Loud and clear. Roger. Please be informed there is a Santa Claus.
Brilliant.
So
They have it. The
I
astronaut
guess
Proof.
the lunar landscape looks a little bit like the Arctic Circle, I guess, maybe, you know, it's
There you go. Yeah, it's not dust, it's snow.
There are theories. So a lot of people speculate that Santa Claus was kind of NASA astronaut code for aliens.
Oh.
Yeah. More likely, it seems that because they were in radio silence for a while, it was a little bit of a miracle that they made it out the other side, right?
Yeah,
So
he was
as
like,
he come
"Oh,
around, he's
there is a
like,
Santa Claus."
yeah, Santa Claus is real. We made it.
Yeah.
Is the most likely option. But a lot of astronauts did go on to work within kind of the realms of going to these meetups and talking to people about UFOs and aliens and other life forms. And a lot of them do actually believe in that stuff. So who knows?
You've got Buzz Aldrin talking about the you know, the Apollo mission that he was on, you know, the moon landing, where they checked in. They said, you know, how far back did we jettison our tanks, you know, and they just say, oh, you know, they should be they're burning up, or they've burnt up by now, and because it was, and he said this, and he didn't redact it, but he kind of went back on it a little bit. But there's interviews with him saying, you know, there was something basically riding alongside us.
Yeah.
Maybe aliens, maybe Father Christmas.
Father Christmas.
There are many tales of astronauts seeing things in space that a lot of the time they do seem to backtrack on afterwards.
New theory: Santa Claus is a Kryptonian. Fortress of Solitude in the North Pole? Check. Can fly around the world at amazing speeds? Check. Absolute legend and benevolent hero? Check.
There you go. Yeah, I think you've cracked it. I mean,
I reckon so. If not Fae, then Kryptonian.
yeah.
New theory. Ocean has worked out that I am Santa Claus.
No.
Oh no.
Tell her you're Krampus.
Grumpus.
Was that her wiggling the knife after telling you that she didn't like the Muppets Christmas Carol? Also, Dad.
Yes. That was it. Yeah. But maybe the Muppets was just like the softening blow. Whilst he's crying about the Muppets, I'll just throw in the Santa thing.
Why not? Let's get it all out in the open now. It's just better. I feel clean and unburdened.
Yeah.
Have we got any more Christmassy bits to add?
I think just that there's lots of, I think we've kind of Christmas has become a big sort of mishmash. It's not even a Christian festival anymore. You can't even just sort of say that. You know, it's a mishmash of some stuff that's so very old and now has become something very different about watching Die Hard at the other end. And it's a mixture of family, for me, I think it's a mixture of family traditions, of getting together, and then with a kind of a hint of just peeping back out through the curtains and back out into the dark when it's the darkest night of the year. And we still light those fires when we set fire to our Christmas puddings. We set fire to things, to hope, dare to hope that the sun will come back again.
Well, I like
But
that.
one day it won't.
Wow.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Next episode, our Lord Cthulhu takes the world. I have to ask everyone, and if you're listening to this, watching this, feel free to comment on this one as well. What's your favourite Christmas song?
Oh,
I'm very tied up with mine. It sort of rotates a little bit, but
I can screen share you mine. So yeah, this would be.
Here we go.
It was at this point that Craig, the Saxon forager, unveiled the Whamageddon, and both hosts of Wyrd Wessex and their guest, Jason Buck, storyteller, were subjected to that last Christmas.
Oh, you bastard! You motherfucker!
You've done it.
I'll put that on. Everyone will hate us. We'll get so many unsubscribes.
So I can feel them dropping.
Wham during my own fucking podcast. Et tu, Craig. Et tu.
Great.
Christ. You bastard.
I knew that would get you.
I didn't see that coming. I just did not see that coming. And then as it popped up, I was reading it and I went, and I could feel, I could, I was reading, and my mind was forming the words, but some part of my body was screaming out, stop, stop, stop him, please, for pity's sake. But it was too late. There it was.
Had you already been whammed, or did you just self-wham? Was that a suicide wham?
I don't do that game. It's stupid. I like Christmas. I like Christmas music. So I
You're
listen.
happy to do it to us, though, I understand. Wamikaze.
Would everyone meet the new co-host of Wyrd Wessex, Jason Buck? Wow. Okay. Well, on that bombshell.
Yeah, that's it.
That is not my favourite Christmas song. I do like it. But it's
Yeah.
not
What
my
was the question?
you bastard.
I quite like Swiss Colony Beef Log, actually, if I'm being honest. Eric Cartman.
Why couldn't you have played that?
Because I wouldn't have got the desired effect.
That was well played. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
You know, if I had it lined up
You
ready
see-
to go as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
My knowledge of like sort of popular music ends in the sort of Baroque period is the trouble. So I've kind of when it's kind of Christmas. What's your favourite Christmas song? I was just going to go. Well, I've got very fond memories of In Dulce Jubilo as a child, and the Boar's Head Carol, which is a nice medieval carol. And then I realised that both my favourite Christmas songs are in Latin. I don't know what that says about me.
Craig, Kathy's dad, he always has like sort of medieval Christmas carols playing, like from December. You go in the house and they're just always playing. But I think mine, it's trouble is a lot of the time, and it's kind of I blame Simon Cowell mostly. Christmas songs just tend to be a normal song from Pop Idol or whatever the fuck, just with some jingling of bells. Demonstrate, Jason.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like he's 17.
yeah, exactly. So it goes back before then, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's it, exactly.
That's not a Christmas song.
Fucking right.
I must admit, I do like Annie. I've got a CD of. I've got a CD. I've got a record. I've got a vinyl of. I got an album of Annie Lennox doing Christmas songs.
Oh,
And that's
brilliant.
pretty good because that's really good, and it's got some sort of medievally sort of feel to it. And there's God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I actually put on a playlist of my own of epic tunes because it just suddenly it kicks in. I can't. If you can only imagine a Christmas song kicking in, but that one does with a. You have to listen to it to understand it. But there you go. I've caught up. There we go. I know what all the kids are doing these days. I'm down with the kids. Boogaloo.
I think my for me, it's either Spaceman Came Traveling by Christopher.
Oh yes, and that.
Because it
Sorry,
ties in
big excited, man.
as a little. There you go. As a little kid, like I love the idea that sort of it was aliens. And I guess as a weirdo adult on Wyrd Wessex, I still love that.
It was
phrase.
aliens.
It was aliens. It's
The only problem with that
parks his
song.
ship above.
Oh yeah. But the only problem I have with that song is it starts off with that kind of a spaceman came travelling on a ship from afar, and it's this sort of plaintive voice. And you go, with light years of time since his.
No, they're not fucking time. There's distance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I'm going to hear
we
that every time.
established they're time travelers.
But then he goes, and it went na 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 na, and then suddenly from this sort of plaintive, wonderful sort of myth, it suddenly goes into I couldn't think up any words for the chorus, so I just went nah.
Yeah, it went this amazing song that the aliens delivered to Jesus was a bunch of football hooligans. No.
Listen, you guys need to stop playing the song because we're going to get done for copyright.
Oh,
I
so
don't think anyone's going to track that. Tim, yeah, White Wine in the Sun by Tim Minchin is one of my favourites.
Don't know that one.
It's really good. It's an atheist Christmas carol, should we say?
Yeah, I like his If You Open Your Mind Too Much, Your Brain will fall out. It's
Yes,
one of my
I love that
favorites.
one.
Yeah.
I think Skindred did a good one called Jungle Bells. That always gets a good play as well. But yeah, for me, I think it's White Wine in the Sun and yeah, Krista Burr.
I like how you
Nice.
said favorite Christmas song and then listed like 20.
Three, man, three. Learn to count. You're learning to read now. Learn to count.
All right, I will.
I can no longer hear "Walking in a Winter Wonderland" without hearing. I heard it once somewhere where someone had changed the words, but the only bits of the words I can remember are "walking round in women's underwear," and that's it. So now all I can't hear "Walking in a Winter Wonderland" without saying "walking round." That's it. It's gone, and I don't know who sang that.
Craig about the last Christmas he spent. What you did.
No, I hung all the underwear on the tree. Remember, we discussed this.
This is true. This is true. Your alternative Christmas decorations. They were red. They were green. They were sparkly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, something we do with guests on this show is a little test, a little check, a little weirdness check. I don't need the year, but could you give me the day and sort of the day and the month of your birth?
25th of April.
Okay, 1 second.
Quite happy to give you the year if that helps.
No, it's all
No,
good.
he's
it's all
just
good.
doing a tax check.
I was going to say, yeah,
This is a good one. You might have won this one. So, a Florida man was rescued after trying to ride a hamster ball to the Bahamas.
amazing.
Basically, if you type in any date, so sort of day and
Florida man.
and then Florida man or Florida woman,
Yeah.
you will get a story because Florida is the fucking weirdest place out there.
So there we go.
A Florida man was rescued last weekend by the US Coast Guard after trying to ride a hamster ball or inflatable bubble to the Bermuda Triangle. It gets weirder. The US Coast Guard voluntarily rescued. Well, I'm guessing it's voluntary. Sort of. Oh, we don't want to rescue, but I suppose we'll have to.
Yeah.
And took Reza Bellucci back to land this Sunday, says the Washington Post. He started in Pompano Beach and ended near Fort Pierce. If the past is any indicator, as it happened before, the rescue mission could end up costing close to $144,000. He doesn't say why. There you go. This isn't the first time his actions have taken a chunk out of taxpayer money. The endurance runner took his homemade contraption out on the water in October in 2014, but ended up having to be rescued after losing his GPS system. And on April the 13th, he again attempted the quest, only to be pushed back to shore because it was a little bit windy. Oh, there you go. And a letter from the Coast Guard says, I view your current planned voyage without use of escort or support vessel or equivalent safety precaution that would allow for self-rescue is unsafe. I encourage you to work with my staff to develop a voyage plan meeting the requirements that I've set forth previously. He has not made a statement on whether there will be a fourth, probably unsuccessful attempt. So that is your Florida man story, Jason.
Brilliant.
I hope your life is.
Bermuda Triangle.
I hope your life is richer for that.
It is. Well, yeah, clearly. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's one of the best.
I
Florida
think
bands
that
we've had.
possibly wins Florida man so far.
Brilliant.
You know.
There we go. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the end of your podcast now.
But yeah, have we got anything else to cover? Or should we get into weird news?
Yes. I quickly wanted to mention with regard to weird news. When I started Googling, one of the first things that came up was I think it was classed as strange news. It was actually a BBC News round, which I know is for younger listeners and younger audience members. But what I found really interesting is I recognized the image that was used for the still. So I had to have a look at it. And it was actually a new sculpture made by past guest Mark from Two Circle Design.
Ah,
And I thought that was quite cool that he came up as a weird news search.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. It means we're mixing in the right circles, right? the right two circles.
He's the guy, Jason, who makes the Beltane Wicker Man and anything related to that. Yeah, and he came on the podcast briefly, and yeah, he was on the strange news roundup this week.
There he is. Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Brilliant.
quite cool. I don't want anyone to think we've missed it for those that are into the kind of UFO stuff as well. But there was some really interesting stuff that happened around Manchester Airport this week, which we're going to cover in a separate episode. We're going to get someone else on that knows quite a bit about it. In case anyone thinks...
someone who's specifically called Craig to talk about it. So, people come to us now.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're gonna, because there was a strange orb type thing that landed on the runway and then took off when they approached it, and the videos that were put online were swiftly removed for some reason. It's very suspicious. So we'll talk about that and some other stuff in another episode. But actually, what I wanted to do, which is still related, is because we've just put out an episode on Rendlesham Forest. I don't know if you know that one, Jason.
No.
So Rendlesham Forest is quite a famous. It's kind of classed as the UK Roswell.
Oh, okay.
It was at a US military base in the 80s, and lights were seen. So say a craft was touched. We think it was time travelers, is what we came to, just to sum up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was actually in the news again this week, so I thought I'd better include this one because it kind of ties off the year of episodes quite nicely. I've skipped a lot of detail from the actual article because it covers stuff that we talked about. So if you missed last week's episode, then go back and listen to that one. So this one is a UFO expert says aliens weren't involved in Rendlesham Forest. It's the headline. It's from the Metro.
Spoil sports.
Time travelers, isn't it, Jason? That's what you believe.
Okay. What do we want? Time travel. When do we want it? It's irrelevant.
So I've made some notes, so hopefully I've got the right bits clipped here and that it makes sense. So Philip Mantle, the former director of investigations for the British UFO Research Association and an author, said he is convinced something happened over those fateful nights in 1980, but doesn't necessarily think aliens were involved. And then he's quoted as saying, what we're looking at is contemporary folklore in action. In 100 years' time, people will look back at the incident and it will be classed as a myth and a legend, just like the Loch Ness Monster or encounters of fairy folk. We class those things as myths and legends, but the people who experienced them at the time didn't. It was very real for them. Between 1997 and 2000, the Ministry of Defence conducted their own investigation into UFOs known as the Condign Report, which we did cover. One of the authors of the report, Dr. Ron Haddow, said the source of the phenomena was not aliens or anything like that, but a form of unknown plasma. And then it's quoted, it says, he was concerned that this plasma emitted some kind of electromagnetic energy, which could interfere with aircraft communications or cause some kind of cognitive impairment. It could be that these soldiers came into contact with this strange plasma, and one of them got too close and suffered from some electromagnetic effects. Mantle added that the soldiers may have ended up having hallucinations as a result of the plasma. Referring to the work of Albert Boudin, a member of the British UFO Society who has written 2 books on the subject, he continued, according to Boudin's research, the Earth naturally produces electromagnetic forces and sometimes gives off these strange lights, this plasma. Some people can be hypersensitive to these lights. In other words, they're allergic. And if you come into contact with these things, you can have the most bizarre experience and you'll think it's absolutely real.
Right.
That kind of sounds just as batshit crazy in a lot of ways.
It's Santa Claus.
Yes, it was Santa Claus. It was actually on Boxing Day, which is why we covered it recently.
It's on his way home.
Yeah.
And when they say people can be hypersensitive, do they mean like, react in anaphylactic shock, or do they mean just like a bit overly tetchy with it? A bit just kind of like,
I don't know. They don't specify. But
get away, plasma.
I mean, one of the guys involved had some health problems, but he couldn't get hold of his own medical records because as part of the incident, they became classified and he can't get them. But we did update that he recently did get compensation. So they know something happened and they're willing to pay him for it.
Yeah.
Yes. But they won't say what, and they still won't give him his medical records.
Yeah. Or is that just the NHS app just not working?
This is a US Air Force.
Oh, well, there we go. That's why I can't get it on the NHS app. That's why.
That's it.
Yeah.
He and he couldn't get them in America because he couldn't pay, the money.
Pay the money, yeah. But yeah, if they've
Yeah.
given him compensation and then someone has admitted culpability for something.
Yes.
My weird news was going to be quite UFO related, but that's because it was exactly the weird news that Craig picked. Proof that we don't correspond these. We do genuinely come at each other with these weird news. You know, we don't plan this bit. So I had to really quickly find another one. So from the Metro, not very Christmassy, but kind of in the theme of the Big J coming back to life. Rohitash was dead to begin with. Man comes back from the dead moments before he was about to be cremated. Much better than moments after you start
After
being.
he comes in.
Morgue workers were in for surprise when the dead man they were about to cremate suddenly woke up. A man only named as Rohitash, who was 45, is said to have shocked onlookers when he began breathing as he was about to be burned in a crematorium in Junjunu city in India on November the 21st. Footage showed Rohitash wrapped in a blanket, opening his eyes and looking dazed. An ambulance was quickly called to take him to a hospital where he sadly later died.
Oh.
I know, it was a bummer.
What the fuck?
Officials blamed a mistake on medics who allegedly skipped the post-mortem examination, which confirmed the patient was deceased. Junjunu Police Superintendent Sharad Chowdhury said the man did not have any relatives present when he was initially arriving at the hospital. His condition worsened and there were no signs of life. But and then goes on to talk how the doctors were supposed to do a post-mortem. They did not do anything. They just filled out the paper formalities and sent the man for cremation. When the body was placed upon the pyre, he woke up. Officials said the patient, a mute and deaf man staying at a local shelter, had fallen critically ill on November the 20th.
God. It really has
But yeah.
life, hasn't he?
Yeah, I know, right? It's
Well, are they sure he's dead this time?
I hope so. I don't hope he's dead, but I'm hoping he's actually, they bury him in a coffin with a bell attached to it or something.
Like sticking pins in him as he goes in, just.
Yeah.
A similar incident happened in Kenya when a man who was declared dead by doctors woke up 3 hours later while workers prepared his body in a morgue. The man was immediately transferred to the hospital mortuary where he was prepared to be embalmed in a morgue by attendants. As part of the process of preserving the body, one of the workers reportedly made an incision in the man's right leg to infuse the chemicals which embalm him, but he suddenly regained consciousness and began to wail in pain. I'm just going to click on this link really quickly because I'm hoping to finish on a cheerier note. Yes, this man in Kenya, Peter Keegan, he was pronounced dead, but then he regained consciousness. He is now happy and alive.
And looking forward to Christmas.
I hope so. I hope so. That he is
See what
happy
they
to be
did.
alive and vowed to dedicate his life to evangelism, which is neither here nor there. But yeah, and they're suing the hospital, which is kind of understandable. But yes, so this man did survive his being
Hooray.
pronounced dead. So let's finish on that one.
Well, positive end to the show.
Yes, and a very
People
Merry
are alive.
Christmas. Very Merry Christmas to all the supposedly dead.
But yeah, that about wraps it up. So Jason, have you got anything you want to plug?
Where are we? We're on we're the late December now, isn't it? When people will be listening to us. So
Indeed.
yeah, so coming up in January and February, I will be doing. If you happen to be the West Midlands of the UK, in January I'm doing an evening of Aleister Crowley stories, but that's live because as well as being the infamous British occultist, he also wrote some short stories. That's a grown-ups only show because his stories are a bit racy. And when it gets to February, I'll be doing some dark Valentine stuff around the UK, and I will inevitably do something online for that as well. So if you want a Valentine's, if you couples, singles, friends, whatever, you want something a bit darker and a bit more of an alternative Valentine's, you can find me there. But otherwise, people can find me if they go to Facebook and look for Jason Buck Storyteller, and they can find all the stuff that I do. And they can come and listen to me online or in person.
Do you have anything on over the Christmas period? Because normally you do like a New Year's Eve on
I was going to do a New Year's Eve, but the person I was going to collaborating with has got some other things on and some family stuff and needs a bit of a rest. So I've decided, do you know what? I'll take that as a good excuse to have a New Year's Eve. First one I've had for many years myself, but I'm doing back-to-back Christmas carols and Yuletide tales throughout the Christmas period up and down England, and online. And I think. What date does this? What date are people listening to?
18th.
18th.
The 18th, indeed, because on the 20th, which will just be in 2 days' time, on Friday 20th, I am doing a Christmas Carol online. So if people fancy a bit of Dickensian,
like the Lamb, not the rat
stuff. So indeed, that's right. Yeah, not quite as many frogs and rats and singing loaves, but you can sit at home and crack open a beer or drink a bottle of port and listen to a Christmas Carol. I'll be doing that online, or you can watch it later if you can't watch it online. But again, come to search for Jason Buck Storyteller, and you'll wriggle your way through to that somehow.
So yeah, on that note,
do you want to plug the socials quick, Craig?
Yeah, we're at Wyrd Wessex everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We've got our merchandise on our Redbubble store. What else we want? Oh, Patreon. Yes, if you join Patreon, there are currently 3 episodes that you can't get elsewhere. Soon to be a 4th episode as well. So if you want more from us, then sign up. It's only £2 a month, and you get the entire back catalogue. And we're aiming to do a new one every month, exclusive for Patreon.
There also might be some early releases on there and other bits and pieces. So yeah, it's worth checking out for the low price, and it all helps. You know, I've managed to scrape together for myself a new webcam, but I need a new microphone. We need to be able to go places, but yeah, it all helps. So thank you to our patrons who already signed up, and yeah, the stories are some cracking ones. So I would recommend checking them out. So yep, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Jason, for coming and chatting to us and telling that brilliant story, and yeah, wearing your jiggly bits.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Been a good, it's been a good chat. It's been fun. I've enjoyed myself. Thank you very much for asking me on.
Absolutely going to have you back on at some point, and I need to chat to you about weird folklore D&D ideas at some point as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Craig and I have got some ideas towards that.
That's the other thing I've got to plug, actually, which is that in February I'm doing in Leamington Spa. I'm doing an all-day D&D game with 2 other DMs. 3 of us are doing it, 3 professional DMs, and we're writing a chapter each for a 3-part game. And then 18 players. We only got 5 seats left. 18 players, 3 tables. Everybody plays the first. Each table plays the first chapter at the same time with a bunch of stock characters you can choose, and then short rest. Everybody moves round a table, so they get a different DM, and then it's everybody plays the second chapter together, and then move around again for the third one after a long rest. And everybody gets this. So everybody gets so the different styles are different DMs, and everybody gets to play the same game, so that between us, everybody can chat about how they got through bits and how it all went. Again, you can find that on my website or Facebook, Jason Buck Storyteller. So there you go, a day of classic D&D.
Thank you all for listening, watching, whatever you're doing, and until next time.
Stay weird.
And have a very weird Christmas.